This is the Fantasy Football Fellowship Podcast, where we unpack fantasy, faith, and life. I'm Bryce Johnson with Pastor Trip Smith, and we are your fantasy coaches here to encourage you and help you win while you play fantasy football with purpose. As we provide fantasy advice, we won't always be right, but we hope we'll be convincing. We are coming to you live from the Unpacking It Ministry studio just outside of Charlotte, North Carolina. That's where I'm coming from, but Trip is on location today. I'm not exactly sure where he's at, but he is coming to us with his family vacation behind him, but he is breaking away to spend some time with us to offer some insight so that you can do well in your fantasy draft coming up this week. And we'll have a blast together. More importantly, we've got a great kind of spiritual topic, faith topic today to wrestle with, all about the difference, but also the complement that we need in fantasy and in life when it comes to being adaptable and having a plan. Having a plan and being adaptable. When do we need each one? How do we navigate both? And I think it's crucial as we dive into drafts this week, and I know tonight, Trip and I have a draft ourselves. So a lot to get to today. We'll discuss some of the latest fantasy news. We'll reveal some draft trends that we've noticed in our own drafts, and then also discuss players that we're actually drafting, ones that we're avoiding. We'll share a few more late round sleepers. More and more guys are sort of popping up, and now that preseason is over, where do we stand with that? And then if we have some time, we'll play the game Would You Rather, and we'll discuss when you're on the clock and you're staring at two different players, who do you hit draft now next to their name. As we do every week, we encourage you to sign up for Fantasy Football Fellowship and get yourself a membership so that all season long you can gain access to our free fantasy concepts that relate to life and faith. We call them breakouts, and they go out each Tuesday afternoon, and you'll hear us talk about it on the show, but then you can read about that breakout, and then you can discuss that topic with your league during a league meeting. So whenever you want to get together with your league, we provide you all the questions and the content, and so we encourage not only you, but your entire league to participate in Fantasy Football Fellowship this season on the podcast and off the podcast. So we're excited. Churches around the country are participating. Leagues around the country are participating, and we're fired up about it. Also, we have some spots left in our own leagues that we run here at Unpacking It Ministries. And so 2 different leagues specifically. So you can go to unpackingit.com/fantasy. And I highly encourage you to check out the standard league so you can compete like normal. But then also check out this league we're doing. It's called the Perfect Roster, where you select 20 players for your team under a salary cap. And then those are your guys all season long. You'll never touch it. It's best ball. You'll pick your 20 guys now. Can you put together a better team than me and Trip and other members of the Unpacking It Fantasy Football Fellowship world? So check that out, unpackingit.com/fantasy. All right, let's say hello to Trip today here coming to us from the beach. Trip, how are you, man?
Bryce, good to be with you, man. I'm reporting live from Sunset Beach, North Carolina. This is my family's go-to beach spot at the end of the summer. They think this trip is about us getting away as a family and recharging. I don't tell them that for me, it's about kind of turning every other part of my brain off and just settling on my final fantasy takes, favorite players, breakouts, busts. So I'm just here, full fantasy brain all week long. And then, lo and behold, man, I start to get ready for our episode today, and my wife turns the tables on me. She says, "You're watching the boys for the rest of the day. Can you figure out something for dinner?" I have to think about only Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce's engagement for the rest of the day. I'll be looking at engagement photos for the rest of the day, not our engagement photos, another couple's engagement photos for the rest of the day. So if one of my boys comes wandering in, it's because my wife has gone just derelict somewhere. She's walking down the beach thinking about romance, I guess. Romance and the Kansas City Chiefs.
So, of course, that's the biggest news of the day. The world is upended because of that. And so we will have to talk fantasy ramifications of this, of course. And so we begin with our first segment. We call it Fantasy Shenanigans.
Fantasy Shenanigans.
All right, so where do we stand now with Travis Kelce? Does this move him up draft boards? Do we continue to avoid him? I haven't drafted him yet, and I don't think that I will. There was a part of me this summer that liked the value in the middle rounds, but I think I still like other guys better. David Njoku, Hawkinson. Now I definitely want Tyler Warren. So that's where I come out. What about for you?
I agree. Yeah, I just think I wasn't super excited to have him on my team at the beginning of the summer before kind of all these developments in his personal life. I'm happy for the guy. He is really living his best life in so many ways. He's having a great time. Again, I just continue to believe that he's playing for it's Super Bowl or bust for the Chiefs and for him especially. I think if they make it to the playoffs, we'll see him turn it on. And he's such a smart tight end and how he finds those open spaces on the field. But you can just see him losing a step of his athleticism every season for the last few years. I would say it probably makes me more excited for some of the other Chiefs pass catchers. And I think the guy that has risen in my mind the most this summer is actually probably Xavier Worthy. But yeah, I don't see myself having Travis Kelce on any team, even if I'm waiting at tight end and he falls and falls and falls, there are still guys in that like low tight end 1 tier that I think I'd rather have than him. So he won't be on any of my rosters this year.
All right, fair enough. So a couple of the other news tidbits that we can unpack a little bit as we think about the shenanigans around the league. Amari Cooper going back to the Raiders, I thought was interesting. And then Jacoby Myers, it seemed like it was separate, but Jacoby Myers now demanding a trade. That came out of nowhere. I'll say that Jacoby Myers has been my guy for a long time. It's kind of since almost before he really emerged, I was in on Myers, or kind of as he was emerging. But I haven't drafted him yet this year, and I don't like when guys demand trades. It makes me nervous. I run the other way. So that's where I come out with him. And then Terry McLaurin finally signs with Washington. And so does that change our approach with Deebo Samuel, or Terry McLaurin was falling in some drafts? And so now where do you evaluate him? And then the last thing, Joe Mixon is out for the first 4 games. I think that became official. And Spencer Rattler has been named the starter for the New Orleans Saints. So any of that news you want to jump in on?
Not the last one. No implications for me on that last announcement. The Saints are just going to be bad this year. It's going to be a rough year for the Saints. It's going to be a rough year for Chris Olave. Alvin Kamara is maybe the only one that you can find value with there. The Jacoby Myers news really surprised me, and I'm trying to figure out what the implications of that are. I mean, I saw the Amari Cooper news and the Jacoby Myers news almost at the same time.
Yep.
I don't think they're related. I don't think it's like Jacoby saw Amari get signed. I was like, I hate that guy. I'm not playing with him. In my mind, what I want to be true is that Jacoby Myers knows that he has been supplanted by Deontay Thornton this summer. That's the Raiders rookie receiver who you've been hearing a lot of buzz about, who is one of the faster guys in the combine this year. And I want to believe that Jacoby knows that he's not the best receiver on the team anymore. That's just hard for me to wrap my mind around. So yeah, I don't know what is going on there.
He just wants money. He just wants more money. That's it.
I think he probably sees what's happening with McLaurin. He sees what's happening with Cortland Sutton. He was waiting for a contract earlier this summer. Jacoby Myers isn't as good as either one of those guys, but he's in the similar stage of his career where he's got to start thinking about like his final contract. So yeah, it probably is just a contract thing, a money thing. But it was a wild turn of events with the Raiders there.
Yeah. Myers isn't gonna. I don't think he'll get traded. They need him. I mean, they don't have the depth to just move on from him. So I think they'll have to figure out a way to pay him and come to an agreement. So I expect that to be fine. But I got to stick with my principle because I kind of run away from guys like that. I have him in a keeper league, so that's fine. I'll keep him there. But I probably won't target him in my final draft that I have. All right. for me, there haven't been any surprising cuts yet. But last year's favorite Darlene looks like he's done. So who's that for you?
It's just the saga of Deontay Johnson is so wild. I was a huge fan of him coming into last season. I think you were in general agreement with me on that. Maybe not quite as optimistic as I was. And then we saw we saw Bryce Young get off to a Bruce Young. Sorry, excuse me.
Don't ever confuse us.
We saw Bruce get off to a slow start for the Panthers last season, and then when he started to come around a little bit, Deontay Johnson looked like the best wide receiver on that team for a stretch of about 4 weeks. And then at their bye week, they traded him. And what has happened since then is almost incomprehensible to me. And the only thing I can figure is that his locker room presence must be pretty detrimental to the team. And even I saw some interviews this preseason with him as a Browns player where he was talking about changing the narrative. And I just had this sense of like, okay, dude, even the way that you're talking about changing the narrative seems a little bit cynical. It seems like everyone else around you is at fault, but not you. Like you're not taking any ownership of what has happened. So maybe he's just a tough guy to have as a teammate. But I think for all intents and purposes, I mean, this is it. We're done with him as like a fantasy relevant player for sure, and maybe just as an NFL relevant player. He was supposedly saying when he arrived at the Browns that they were the only one that sought him out in free agency this offseason. So I don't even know if he ends up on a team.
No, he's done.
His career might just be over.
He's done, and Robert Woods got cut. I think he's done. There have been a couple names that have popped up where you see that name one more time and you go, that's the end for him. We'll never hear him again. And so you don't say that lightly. Like that's sad for some of these guys, especially, Robert Woods had a nice little career there. But if he can't make it in Pittsburgh, it's just not going to happen because he had probably little opportunity there. So, all right. So we're looking at cuts this week and maybe potential trades here or there that you got to take notice of. So stay alert on that as you're stepping into drafts and, last minute kind of news. So all of that's taking place. And then of course we're getting any injury updates, and I have to share a big injury concern that is really a surprise. And I realized it last night. I suffered a draft day injury, and I can officially say that I am injured while playing fantasy football. And I was complaining to my wife last night that my back hurts. And I go, yeah, my back's hurting. And I was like, yeah, I think I heard it the other night when I was at my church fantasy draft. I was leaning over for too long and now my back is sore. And she goes, you're telling me that you got hurt playing fantasy football? And it hit me and I go, this is unbelievable. I am absolutely hurt because I'm a fantasy football manager. What has happened to me? This is unbelievable. So very concerning, Trip.
That is concerning. I mean, sitting is the new smoking, as they say. You got to be careful about how you sit and how long you sit. I was hoping you were going to say you injured maybe the upper back from like a dramatic fist pump, like as the last pick of the draft wound down and you got that final player that slipped to you and you were so excited about the roster that you had put together that it was an injury celebration. But just the hunched over the spreadsheets and the cheat sheets and could it be bought? You were so intensely focused that you didn't move your back for 3 hours. That's a tough injury, man. That's a rough one.
It is. And kind of the elbow arms a little sore from the third piece of pizza that I had. And so, it's been draft season's a lot, man. I'm exhausted. I'm worn out. It's been so many drafts and so much fun and my back's sore. So,
I want to get a little insider information. Are you going to be ready for week 1? Can we expect to see you out there behind the phone, behind the tablet and the laptop week 1? Are you going to be ready to go, or is something you're going to carry into the regular season?
I'm day to day at this point, but I'm hoping to be Sunday at 1:00 ready to go, and on week 1 or Thursday night, I guess, and Friday night. I think we have a Friday night game too. That first weekend, and we better prepare ourselves. That's going to be a big first weekend. So, we got to rest up and be ready to go. No doubt about it. All right. So as we wrap up preseason, some other shenanigans just to finalize. Any other names that sort of popped in preseason I'll say overall, I was very disappointed in preseason this year. And I know it sounds like a ridiculous thing, but sometimes I like to gather a little bit more intel, a little bit more insight. But I found that the way the NFL sets up preseason these days, there was no consistency. I mean, what week 1, week 3, like who knows? Like there used to be a process and sort of a system to how we could navigate the preseason. I don't see it anymore. And we barely saw starters. And so anyway, I didn't take a ton from it. However, the names that sort of continually jumped out there, Isaac Tesla with Detroit, Jaden Higgins with Houston, Matthew Golden in Green Bay, and then if I could say his name, I would, but Alec Ayonamar from the Titans. Maybe you could say it better than me.
I think, is it Ayomanor? I don't know. I get it confused with Arroyo, the Seahawks rookie tight end. When I see those two names on paper, they look the same. So, but no, I'm not even going to try, man. Epic. I've heard some people calling him Epic because it will autocorrect to Epic on your phone when you try to fight his first name. So I'm just going to go with Epic. He's a good sleeper pick, man. I'm excited about Matthew Golden. Of the names you just listed there, everything that we've heard throughout training camp, the drumbeat has grown louder and louder for him. And then we saw a few catches in the preseason that looked really dynamic, some really great plays that he made. But yeah, these names you've listed here, Tesla, he's been showing up on every, I guess he's supposed to say Tesla, but I like to call him a Tesla.
Oh, Tesla. You gotta go Tesla.
Every highlight reel, every kind of X feed. So yeah, I mean, is there one of those guys that you have ended up with on your team or have found yourself targeting late in drafts?
I don't have any of them yet. And I would say that Tesla, I think he's got a chance. I think he's got a chance to be a contributor because even last year, I kept waiting for Tim Patrick. Like he had a few moments in Detroit. So I think there's space for a third guy in Detroit if the offense is rolling. But I got to see this offense rolling with the new coordinator before I'm all excited about it. So I think he's more of a waiver wire guy just to be aware of later on. But with 2 more drafts, I'd like to get Jaden Higgins. So hopefully I'll snag him tonight or next week. Couple other things. What other kind of situations or teams are you continuing to wrestle with? We're in our final drafts here and, all we wanted is clarity, right? We talked about that the last month or so. Is, okay, what do we make of this backfield? We talked about it, the last couple of weeks specifically. And I've got to say, I still don't know how I feel about the Jets. I still don't know how I feel about the Jaguars. Those continue to be those teams because when I'm on the clock and I'm considering a player from those offenses, I just don't know which way to go. And like even Jacksonville, it's like, are they really going to trade Tank Bigsby or Trevor Etienne? And is it because they really love Tootin? Is that the truth? And so that's still, we don't know until that trade happens. We don't really know. And so then you got 3 guys still there. So I'm drafting with those 3 guys on the roster. Which one do I get? And then with, even with the receivers, like I didn't pull the trigger on Brian Thomas Jr. the other day because I'm still thinking, wait, is it going to be Travis Hunter? Is Brian Thomas going to be just as good this year in a different offense with Travis Hunter? Does that make him better? Does it make him worse? Can he follow it up? So anyway, I just have so much certainty with the Jaguars. And then same with the Jets. I snagged Fields in one league, but it's like, and I got Mason Taylor as well at tight end, but I'm still not like overly confident and I've still soured a little bit on Garrett Wilson and I keep going back and forth on him as well. Any other teams or players that you keep wrestling with?
I mean, because of his legs, Justin Fields will be a viable fantasy starter for as long as he is an NFL starter. But just everything you're hearing about the lack of improvement in his accuracy has me so nervous about Garrett Wilson. 2 receivers that I was excited about early in the summer that I am much less excited about now, Garrett Wilson and DJ Moore. We saw the Bears offense kind of come crashing back to earth after a pretty good showing in their first few drives. In their second preseason game, they finally, they came up against some defensive starters and Caleb Williams made some of his old mistakes. It didn't look great. But now you're hearing these reports that DJ Moore is lining up as a running back for a significant number of plays at Bears training camp because their running back core is sort of decimated behind DeAndre Swift. But also what you're hearing is they can't figure out his role in the offense and how they want to use him. That makes me really nervous about DJ Moore. And it actually makes me kind of cautiously optimistic about Roma Dunze, that it might mean that Roma Dunze has made a leap and has sort of established himself as the clear best receiver on the team. I think that DJ Moore has been and is a great NFL receiver, so that would be hard for me to comprehend. But from what I hear, he's not the guy that they're really like featuring in their passing offense. It's a Dunze that they're trying to utilize there. So DJ Moore is a guy who I thought was a steal in like the mid-20s for wide receivers at the beginning of the summer. And now I'm nervous that may be kind of that he may be appropriately valued there. I don't know what to make of that situation. Yeah, so some of these teams that are in transition, it's hard to know what they're going to do when this real season starts.
Yeah, it's tricky. And so, I mean, we're all going to end up with a few players that we're iffy on. There's risk and all that kind of thing. There's no 100% guys, but there are a few that are a little more solid, you feel a little more confident in for sure. All right, so speaking of DJ Moore, last Tuesday night, we had the Unpacking It auction best ball draft. It is a ton of fun. This league format is so great, and I continue to pound the table for auction drafts. I can't get enough of them. I love them. They're so great. I only do 2 a year, but they're an absolute thrill ride because you have to lock in for basically 2 hours. There's no bathroom break. There is no easing up. There's no like, I'm going to sit on, I'm going to wait 20 minutes in between picks. There's none of that. And so to flip that the other night on Sunday night, then I had my standard draft at church, which was a ton of fun, but I drafted 14th. So I would draft and then have a huge gap to wait. And so what makes the auction draft fun is you're essentially on the clock the entire time. Mm-hmm. And so anyway, that night, I made some good choices. I feel good about my team, but it is so hard to draft like well, because what happens is early in the draft, players go for certain values. And then you go, oh, wow, that's a pretty good deal. But then you wait later in the draft and you go, wait, that wasn't that good of a deal. Because then guys, you get a discount later in the draft. So things change so rapidly within an auction draft, and your thoughts on certain players and values and all that kind of thing, positions for sure. But I did get DJ Moore, but he's my 4th wide receiver. So I feel pretty good about that. And then I went after my guys, like I told you on last week's show. I love Chase Brown. I love DK Metcalf. So I just went and got those players in the auction draft, which, again, that's why I love the auction draft, because you really can get your guys if you want. So what was your takeaway from your team and your strategy?
Yeah, there are players on my team that I'm excited about because this is a best ball league. I don't think that I would feel great about my team if this were sort of a standard you set your own lineup every week type situation. There are a number of receivers that I have that all feel sort of like middle tier receivers. What I was shocked by as we went through our auction draft, I haven't done a ton of auctions, but I feel like I'm relatively experienced in the auction drafting world. Is, man, some of the bold drafters in our league came out of the gates guns blazing, man. I mean, and we were bidding players up to $70, approaching $80 that I just thought was I was like, this is an 18 player roster. How are we going to finish this draft if we're spending $75? And lo and behold, there were some guys who got their first 4 players and then had to wait for about 2 of those 3 hours that you mentioned, Bryce, before they were able to draft again. And I feel like I really flourished in the middle of the auction. I was able to be a little bit more aggressive on kind of some mid-tier players. So I think my team, there's not a single player on my team that jumps off as like, this guy is a superstar. When I look at Fantasy Pros rankings, I don't have anybody in the top 30 according to Fantasy Pros. And then I just have a ton of players between like 30 and 60. And I think I feel okay about that in a best ball. I would not feel good about that if I was having to set a lineup every week. But if I can get some of these guys to blow up, I've got Travion Henderson. I'm not sure that I want to have Travion Henderson in a league where I've got to set my lineup every week, but I know that he's going to have some weeks where he absolutely explodes. Same with Matthew Golden. So yeah, I feel pretty good about the team that I put together. But it's going to be fun. Yeah, there's some teams that went true like studs and duds, spent all of their money on 5 guys and then had to 15 $1 players. And then some teams that balanced it out a little bit more. So I'm excited to see how this works out. I've never done a best ball league that's this deep before.
Yeah, no, it's fascinating. And looking back, like Tony Pollard went for $17 and I got Chuba Hubbard for $19. I would have rather had Pollard. And I bowed out of that bidding with Pollard. So there's just certain, like you look back, you go, a couple bucks here, a couple bucks there. You'd rather have certain players. And then I got Tyjae Spears. Now he's going to be injured for a few weeks, so a little bummed about that. But no, your running backs, Travion, Pacheco, Ollie, RJ Harvey. So nice job there with your running back room. So
I just think for anybody who's still drafting, who has not drafted in a league yet, I think that the hate on Pacheco has gone too far. He slid down draft boards. I've noticed that like some fantasy analysts are starting to notice that. That nobody was excited about him. You're not drafting him in the place that you were last year by any means. But he looks like the clear-cut starter for the Kansas City Chiefs. He seems to be healthy. I think he's going to get every chance to be the starter, even though Kareem Hunt and Brashard Smith may be involved in that offense. But Pacheco felt like a really good, and I don't think I had any running backs by the time that at least 8 teams in the league had 2 starting running backs. So I waited really late on running back, and I felt pretty good about getting Pacheco for where I did and how much he cost. Can't remember what I spent on him, but it was high teens, I think, as well. So feel pretty good about that one.
Good stuff. All right. So a couple other thoughts, and then we're going to get to our breakout. So I did a 14-team standard draft on Sunday night, and a couple things for people to think about. I'm really in on Chase Brown, and I said that last week, and I just want to say I put my money where my mouth is, so to speak, because I drafted him in the first round with my 14th pick, and so that's how confident I am in him, and think that you should be too. I think he's that good. He's that offense. We know what they're capable of. And so I love his role with them. I've come around on Drake London, and early in the podcast season, I didn't realize how good Drake London was last year. I just overlooked him. And once I realized that, and the opportunity that he has as the guy in Atlanta, the connection that he has with Michael Penix, I think he's going to be a wide receiver 1 this year, top 10 guy. And so I drafted him as my top wide receiver. So I'm in on him. I continue to be in on DK Metcalf, almost to the fault that it's going to rise or fall my fantasy season, because I think I have DK. I'm 3 for 3 so far on my drafts. But I was able to get Ted McMillan. So again, excited about McMillan, what he's going to do. I'm repping my Panthers hat today. I'm buying into the hype for him, and was able to get him at a pretty good price. And then the running backs I'm still in on. Jordan Mason, Trey Benson. Was able to draft both of those guys. And my first foray into Jaden Blue. I saw a little bit of him in preseason. I liked what I saw. He got hurt. But if he's healthy, I think he's going to be all right. So there you go. Those are some names that I'm still excited about and actually pulling the trigger on to draft.
So you were 14th pick in a 14-team league. So I'm assuming you went Chase Brown and then immediately Drake London there at the turn. Right. Yep. I feel good about that start you've got a cornerstone running back, and I think Drake London is on the short list for wide receivers that you can realistically imagine finishing as the wide receiver 1 overall. He's going to get a target share if Penix is a serviceable quarterback, which I kind of think he is. He's looked good in the preseason. We've heard good things about him in training camp. So it sounds like a good team to me. Yeah. And I've come more and more around on Drake London as well. Ted McMillan, the hamstring thing worries me, but in a 14-team league, you gotta take risks like that to get values. And the good news is that he's 22 years old and not 29 years old. So you're a little bit less about that hamstring stuff with some of these younger players, their ability to come back a little bit quicker.
Absolutely. So as I head into 2 more drafts, just throw out a couple names that I want to draft, but they've been hard to draft because the other fantasy managers also feel good about these players. So they want these players. And so part of our challenge is knowing, when to get guys. And there are certain times you got to reach maybe a little bit early to get guys. It is tough when you're on the edges of drafts. If you're 1st or 14th, you don't always have an opportunity to get every guy. But I still want to draft Jaylen Warren. I still want Travion Henderson. I want Tony Pollard. I wouldn't mind DeAndre Swift in a league. I really like Ray Davis. Actually, I got him in the auction league, so I like Ray Davis. And then Tyler Warren. I still haven't been able to draft Tyler Warren. Tucker Kraft. I think other people see the value in Tucker Kraft as well. And then you mentioned Rome Odunze. I'd like to snag him in a league as well. So Is there anybody else that you're really targeting that you haven't been able to snag yet?
I mean, I'm with you on Tyler Warren. The more I see him and the more I think about him, the more excited I get. I see that you included as like a deep name on this list, Trevor Lawrence. And I just think if in my head, when I put together what Trevor Lawrence was supposed to be coming into the NFL, how much of a mess the Jacksonville Jaguars have been for the entirety of his professional career. And I think Liam Cohen's ability to potentially turn that around and how Lawrence has looked in limited action in the preseason. He's a guy that I wouldn't want to have as my starter, but I would like to have him on my bench just on the off chance that he sort of flourishes into what we have always wanted him to be, which is sort of a generational talent at quarterback. He could be the kind of guy that if you wait at quarterback and want to take a second one on your bench, could be a league winner if everything breaks right for him. They have an offense that has the potential to be dynamic if he plays well. That's another one that I'm always finding that there's a quarterback that slips that I'm more excited about before I get a chance to take Lawrence. But I think as someone who normally doesn't roster two quarterbacks, I'd be willing to put him on the back kind of end of my bench and just see what happens there. That Jaguars backfield is difficult to discern. But Brian Thomas Jr., Travis Hunter looks like an exciting player. They have some pass catchers. Even their tight end, Brenton Strange, I think could surprise some people this season. That's a name that jumped out at me on your list. But yeah, they're just, there's so many guys that I can make the bull case narrative for them in my head that when I see them later in the draft, I'm like, oh man, it would have been fun to have Braylon Allen. But it's like, well, yeah, there's a guy that I was excited about before him that filled that running back slot for me. So, I feel good about how my drafts have gone so far.
Nice.
Haven't had too much buyer's remorse yet.
Man, I was all set to draft Braylon Allen the other night. Got sniped. Good old fashioned sniped. I had to look up from my notes and I was ready to draft him. And then I realized, he was just taken. It was one of those. So
he's so young. He's so good. And Breece Hall is so inconsistent and injury prone. Braylon Allen could be the kind of guy that wins you your league as a running back this season that you take as like your fourth or fifth running back. So name to remember.
Absolutely. All right, let's jump into this week's breakout. And each week we take a fantasy concept and relate it to the Bible, relate it to life. And this week I want to talk about this concept of adaptability, being fluid in the middle of drafts and how that translates to our own lives. But then also recognizing the importance of having a plan and preparing the best we can in fantasy and life. But I think there's some tension with this because what's funny is I'll hear different fantasy analysts, some guys are really heavy on you got to have a plan. You got to have a plan. You got to follow a strategy, 0 RB, hero RB, and you got to stick to your plan. But then you'll hear fantasy analysts talking about, hey, you got to adapt. You got to be, willing to change course midway through the draft, see how the draft is falling, let the draft kind of fall to you and respond accordingly. And so I think it's not either or. I think it's yes. And so I think for us as fantasy managers, we want to spend the summer planning, preparing, understanding different strategies and feeling good about, our approach to drafting and when specifically we would target certain players in certain positions and have that overall outline. And then the key is not being so stuck and stubborn in the middle of the draft. And you're like, well, I told myself I was going to take a tight end in the 6th round. So I'm going to have to take one here. I don't like any of the tight ends, but I told myself I would. No, don't take a tight end. Wait. If he's not there in round 6, you don't like the tight ends, change course. And wait a little bit longer, and then you can still get a good tight end that you feel solid about. And so we'll start on the fantasy side, and then we'll get to the life side. But the question is, when have you needed to change course? When have you needed to embrace being adaptable? And so for me on Sunday night drafting, all of a sudden George Kittle was available to me at a good spot. It was, at the end of the 3rd round, beginning of the 4th round. And I normally wait on tight end. But when Kittle was there, at that value, I felt like he slipped a few spots. I wouldn't have taken him early, but I was like, no, I'm willing to take him here. But then what happened was the rest of my draft it threw me for a loop because I wasn't quite as planned and prepared so I had to really adjust because now all of a sudden I was like, now I'm chasing running backs. But then I had to remind myself, wait, but I'm solid at tight end. And so then I didn't have to worry about that, later on. And so when has this sort of resonated with you, Trip, as far as needing to adapt in the middle of a fantasy draft?
Yeah, well, the answer to that question is in all of my very favorite leagues, right? The thing you've got to remember about these fantasy analysts, and I love to listen to fantasy football podcasts and check out Fantasy Pros and other websites and see what these guys are saying. But a lot of them are doing drafts with other fantasy analysts, quote unquote, fantasy experts. And you can you can come in with a plan because everybody kind of knows like what is the chalk approach to building a solid team all around. Most of these fantasy analyst leagues don't have what your home league has that you love so much, which is one dude who's going to do something wild and unexpected and probably a bad idea, when he takes his second tight end in the 5th round, or when he has, for some reason, 3 quarterbacks on his roster by round 13. It's like those are the best leagues to play in because you're playing with your buddies. You know who the goofballs and the tacos in your league are, right? And also, you're playing with people who are going to snipe you right before you were going to pick somebody. And that's what makes fantasy football and that's what makes drafting fun. So I would say I want to have a few sort of specific principles maybe in place when I'm getting ready to draft, have an idea of how I feel about the running back landscape on any given season. But I want to be sort of adaptable and fluid when I'm drafting because it's fun to draft that way. And it's especially fun to kind of win a draft that way when you've got a buddy who starts a weird run on quarterbacks in the 7th round because he takes his backup quarterback there or something like that to figure out, okay, how am I going to adjust to this? And then you're right. You said it exactly right, Bryce. When you feel yourself breaking your own rules that you followed in other drafts, the tendency there can be to panic. And that's exactly when you want to say, okay, I can still build a solid team. I'm going to do this a different way than I did the draft that I did with my other friends 2 weeks ago. And it's fun to adapt in that way in real time.
And the reality is there will be some drafts where things kind of go your way, where you're like, ooh, yes, this guy fell to me. Or yes, I was hoping to get this guy in this round. And it happens. And the first draft I did this summer, it happened that way. And I love my team. I'm psyched. And I'll confess, my Sunday night team that I just drafted most recently, it did not go my way. It just went way different. There was a guy in the league who goes, I'm just here to mess things up. And he messed things up. Like he was trying to mess things up. And so the draft did not go the way that I had planned, the way that I had even hoped that it would go. And so I'll admit, I was a little frustrated. I'm like, I wanted that guy, or I can't believe I missed out on him, or I can't believe I'm taking this guy in this round. And I left the draft going, I hate my team. I don't like my team. This isn't what I wanted. These aren't the guys I wanted. But I had to adjust. I had to adapt. And now that a couple days have gone by, I look at it, I go, all right, I'm fine. It wasn't what I had intended or whatever, but it's going to be okay. And now I'm content with the team that I have, and I know that I'll be able to compete pretty well this year. And so,
can I just jump in there and say real quick, when something sort of quote unquote draft breaking happens, right? When you see somebody do something that is especially weird in your draft, make a mental note of that, and then approach that manager about a trade a couple of weeks into the season, or even before the season begins, right? If you're like, man, that guy really should not have taken that additional tight end there when he's so shallow at running back. Well, if you're solid at running back, go offer him a running back to take his best tight end, right? Like, so the distortions and the adaptability that goes along with drafting continues after the draft is over. I know there are people who have different feelings about taking advantage of their buddies with trades. That's not what you're doing, okay? But you want to go say, hey, it looks like your team is sort of stacked at tight end and pretty weak at running back. Yep. Would you trade here? And you can make a mental note when that happens in your draft and carry that with you when the draft is over.
Absolutely. That's a good reminder for sure. And so as we think about this concept of adaptability, it really translates to our own lives, because we know that life is constantly changing, and a new season brings, a different set of challenges, and we can either, decide to be frustrated, stubborn, and hopeless, or we can embrace and adjust to what's in front of us. And so I think this plays out in a number of different ways, but I think it hit me, like, especially like in marriage or relationships or people that you work with. We have to be adaptable because it's not always our desires that get their way, right? We have to understand that, okay, I'm gonna have to sacrifice a little bit so that my wife could be happy, or I can serve her, help her. And it requires, humility. And so just like in fantasy, I don't get everything I want. I don't get every player that I want. That's not how it goes. And so other players, they have their desires and their wants, right? They want certain players. And so that's part of fantasy, but in life specifically, the understanding and willing to embrace the sacrifice that goes into that leads to adaptability. And then also just being adaptable, that things take longer than we want. So not only do all of our desires not happen exactly how we want, but also when we want, the timing that we want. And so we have to be adaptable to the delays. And again, we can either be frustrated and stubborn and hopeless, or we can adapt and go, okay, it's taking a little longer. Just like it takes a little longer maybe to draft a tight end. I got to wait. I got to wait on tight end. I got to wait on the response, or I got to wait on the job. I got to wait on the house. I got to wait on different things that happen in life. That's part of the deal. And then, I think being adaptable, sometimes we have to be willing to change our opinions on things. And we absolutely want to stay true to truth and God's word. And I'll talk more about that. But I think sometimes we get so stuck in our ways of like opinions. And it's like, no, if we've been given more truth or more information, then we can change our opinions. Not that we have to be, be crazy about flip-flopping all the time, but like in fantasy, if we get more information, we have to be willing to be open to that. So I've been going. Trip, why don't you jump in on any of this?
I mean, I think three sort of what seem to be essential human desires, three things that a lot of us as humans, and I would say fallen sort of sinful humans, desire, is to be in control, to sort of to know everything, and to not have to wait. We don't like waiting. We often pretend like we know a lot more than we do, and we want to be in control. And in each of those places, I think that God, because He's a loving Father who's growing us into spiritual maturity, He likes to mess us up in each one of those three areas to show us, like, you don't know nearly as much as you think that you do. You're not as smart as you think that you are. He especially likes to show us that we're not in control, that we don't control as much as we would like to control. And in those moments, humility and curiosity tend towards adaptability, where we can sort of open our white-knuckled kind of control of the life around us. And you said it exactly right, Bryce. When you start it, if what religion is, if what being a Christian is a set of principles that I know and I can sort of follow as rigidly as possible to live a successful life, that's a really convenient way to think about Christianity. That's what most religion says. What it is it's actually a dynamic relationship with a living God who's inviting us to live in loving relationship with Him and other people, which means that we're not nearly as in control as we think that we are. Things are going to get messy. Things are going to get sort of unexpected and surprising. And in those moments, adaptability is actually a form of trusting the Lord. It's relinquishing my control and being curious and open-handed and admitting I don't know. And so, yeah, I mean, what a great topic to think about. I love that you led with your relationship with like your spouse and with other people. Loving others requires adaptability, flexibility, interruptibility. So it's a great topic to think about.
Absolutely. And just to hit home, we have to stand firm in our core beliefs and biblical principles. Absolutely. We want to stand on truth. And with the understanding, and we also want to have a plan. Like we want to plan and prepare and that kind of thing, but also knowing, to your point, that we're not in control and our plans change. And we know this. We hear this all the time. We like on one end get it, but then when it happens and our day doesn't go the way that we hoped. Yesterday, I had so many problems. It was just annoying problems. And so, it's like, how am I going to respond to that? and react to that. And am I gonna, okay, here's my plan for the day, but I'm gonna hold it loosely. Here's my plan for my life, but I'm gonna hold it loosely. And as followers of Jesus, we want to remain fluid to the leading of the Holy Spirit. And so as we rely on his direction and his guidance, every day, where things are going to be different than what we initially expected. All of our desires aren't going to happen. All of our, the timing that we want isn't going to happen. And how is God using all of that to mold us and shape us and teach us and guide us? Because his plan, his purposes are greater than ours. And so we have to be open-handed and surrendered and adaptable to all of that. And really, surrender is a key word in this as well, about being adaptable. And so, we know the plans are going to go awry. And so we shouldn't be surprised by that. And so just like in fantasy, we shouldn't be surprised when somebody takes a quarterback, early in the second round that we weren't expecting, or they reach for that exciting rookie running back. And you're like, oh man, I was going to get him in the 7th round. Well, in the 3rd. And so now you're not going to get him in the 7th round. And so are you going to, okay, fine. All right, let's go. Let's keep, head down. Let's go. Or for us, as followers of Jesus, head up. Lord, where do you want me to go? What's next? What direction do I go? And do we have that heart posture? So that's the challenge. And it's tough some days.
I mean, as you're saying this, I'm thinking my oldest son is getting to the age where he's starting to like to play different board games. Like he's starting to understand games. And we're even thinking about starting a little fantasy football league here at the family, just doing a super shallow little league. And he's excited about the players that he's going to draft. When you play a game with him and something unexpected happens, right? or his plan for the game gets interrupted, he has a total meltdown. And usually the game is just over. But even when it's not, it's like he's not going to recover and win that game, right? Because he doesn't understand yet that, as you're going, you're not in control. There are other real dynamic people that are on the board, so to speak, and they're going to mess up your plans all the time. That can be a huge cause of stress and upset for us. It's also where adventure and opportunity and sort of the excitement and the freedom of life, it's new opportunities to love people. And you use the phrase followers of Jesus a minute ago, Bryce. This is what Jesus was like. His disciples would walk around with him and they'd say, Jesus, we had a plan for the day. And now you're talking to this woman that frankly no one should be talking to. And Jesus was one of the most important things that he did in his earthly ministry. So it's like, if you're going to be one of his followers, if you're going to be one of his disciples, he's going to lead you to unexpected and uncomfortable places. And it's in the adaptability that we find adventure and that we find love. So it's him inviting you to grow into maturity as one of his followers.
I love that word, adventure, because when we were in the middle of our auction draft the other night, it was an adventure. Like it was going all over the place. It's like, man, I don't know what to do. It's crazy, but you're in for the adventure. And so for us, if we're in Christ and we're in for the adventure, the life that he has for us, and it's fun, it's wild, and it is unexpected and unpredictable, and things are going to happen in life at times that we got to respond to and be adaptable to. And one of a couple of verses I want to focus on today, and it's a familiar verse, but I think it resonates with this topic, and it's speaking about contentment, and I think at the core of being adaptable is being content, because you're good with whatever happens. And so where does contentment come from? And so let's dive into Philippians 4:11-13. And Paul writing, this is the Amplified Translation. He says, not that I speak from any personal need, for I have learned to be content and self-sufficient through Christ, satisfied to the point where I am not disturbed or uneasy, regardless of my circumstances. I know how to get along and live humbly in difficult times. And I also know how to enjoy abundance and live in prosperity. In any and every circumstance, I have learned the secret of facing life, whether well-fed or going hungry, whether having an abundance or being in need. I can do all things which he has called me to do through him who strengthens and empowers me to fulfill his purpose. I am self-sufficient in Christ's sufficiency. I am ready for anything and equal to anything through him who infuses me with inner strength and confident peace. That sums it all up right there. That's how we live with contentment, adaptability, and surrendered, regardless of what happens to us. Whatever the circumstances come, whatever unpredictability happens, we are content because Christ strengthens us, empowers us, and it's his sufficiency, not our own self-sufficiency. So any reaction to that?
I love that, man. Yeah, just to see the interruptions in our day, the moments when we realize we're much less in control that we thought that we were, as new invitations to follow Jesus, to love him and love others. I mean, I do really think that that's where a lot of the excitement and adventure and hope of the Christian life comes from. And those verses you just read hit that right on the head. He's doing something in us and through us that's dynamic and empowering and beautiful. So yeah, what a great set of verses. Yeah, that was awesome.
It's cool. All right. So I hope that that's encouraging to everybody. And as we head into our final fantasy drafts, let's be adaptable. But every day in life, let's be content in Jesus, always satisfied in him. And then as the waves of life come and the crazy circumstances, we can stand firm on him and not change our deep rooted core beliefs in him, but be adaptable to the things of life and the challenges that come our way. So there you go. One final thing I'll share. I was even thinking about this just in light of ministry and even specifically Fantasy Football Fellowship. And, God put this on my heart over 10 years ago to do something like Fantasy Football Fellowship. And here we are, where it's, really gained some momentum, really excited about what God's doing through the ministry. But over the last, specifically 7 years, we've adapted and changed in a number of ways. Now, the main thing hasn't changed. It's like, hey, we're going to do fantasy concepts relating to the Bible, relating to life. But we've changed sort of how we've presented it and how we've offered it to churches and leagues, and our website and our podcast have changed. And we've been adaptable to how fantasy football has changed, how culture has changed, all those kinds of things. The vision has remained the same. The vision from God and the foundation has remained the same, and then the heartbeat behind it. But we've been adaptable too. We haven't been stuck in our ways. And so maybe that's something, for somebody to hear today as well, that might resonate in business wise, family wise. Keep the big vision driving you, but be open to tweaks. Be open to tweaks. So same with your fantasy draft. You could tweak a little bit. Go snag that fourth running back before you even get a tight end. How about that? Could be bold. You get somebody late. Go get Tucker Kraft late. So, all right, there you go. That's this week's breakout. Check out fantasyfootballfellowship.com for more information about our ministry and how you can become a free member. But also you can support this ministry as well financially. And so you can donate on the website, and we appreciate everyone that has been supporting the ministry as well. It means a lot. And then also, if you want to join one of our leagues and compete against Trip and I, check that out, unpackingit.com/fantasy. All right, we got a few minutes left together today, and we might as well have a little fun and play some Would You Rather. So here we go.
Get in on this. Would you rather?
That sounds good. I'll have that.
It's a good time. Do you know what I mean?
This is Would You Rather.
I'm psyched.
All right, I want to talk about a couple names that are they're not controversial, but they're not. There's not a consensus about these two players, and I'm curious which one you would draft, because in the draft that I just came from, these two guys went in the same round. And so, would you rather draft Tyrone Tracy or Caleb Johnson?
I mean, you're talking about one guy who I think is going to be the clear-cut starter for his team at the beginning of the season, but with an exciting rookie kind of lurking in the background. So Tyrone Tracy, I think because of Scadabo's injury concerns in the preseason, it's going to take him a little while to get fully turned on in the Giants' game plan. Whereas I think that probably Caleb Johnson is going to be starting the season off behind Jaylen Warren.
And maybe Kenneth Gainwell.
And well, I mean, who knows what's going on there?
Maybe.
I still have heard people who are really excited and optimistic about Caleb Johnson, people who I think have good fantasy football opinions. You have to be concerned about the preseason. That said, if I have sufficient depth at running back where neither one of these guys is my starter in my running back slot at the beginning of the season, I would probably go Caleb Johnson, just because I think that by the time you get to the fantasy playoffs, there's a better chance that he's a strong starting option and potentially a really dynamic sort of league winning upside type of option. Whereas I think that the Giants backfield could be a full committee, or Scatterboot could have even supplanted Tyrone Tracy by late in the season. But that's a tough one, man. That's a tough one. I think you're going to feel better about having Tracy at the beginning of the season, and maybe feeling better about Caleb Johnson by the end of the season, but it's not a sure thing. So I don't know.
All right. So I took Tyrone Tracy over Caleb Johnson. And I told you I hated my team when I left the draft because Tyrone Tracy is my running back too.
Yeah, that's tough.
So, but see, I complimented him with Jordan Mason. And so that means I've got Chase Brown and Tyrone Tracy to start the year, and I'm buying into Jordan Mason being an RB2 by the end of the season. I think he's that good, and the opportunity in Minnesota. And so I just need Tracy to carry me early in the year, and then I'll have some other options. I got Trey Benson as well. So I think my overall running back room will be fine. But if you just looked at it like, ooh, Tyrone Tracy's your RB2, it's a 14-team league, but still. But I like Tracy. I think he's going to be fine. And I liked what I saw last year. He burst onto the scene. He put up some big fantasy numbers in a few weeks. And then he had some duds and he had some fumbles and people kind of ran from him. But anyway, I like Tracy. And I just haven't heard enough positivity from Caleb Johnson. Whereas Jaylen Warren, I do want. And I was listening to Aaron Rodgers today on the radio, and he was actually good. I had to say I enjoyed. There's the Pittsburgh Aaron Rodgers. I think I'm coming around on.
Okay.
I'm in on DK Metcalf, so I'm already there. But anyway, but he likes Warren a lot. Because Warren blocks. He'll protect Rodgers. When you got a bad Achilles and you're 40 years old, you want a guy back there that you could trust. So I think it's going to be Jaylen Warren. And then let's see. I mentioned this earlier. Would you rather have Tony Pollard or Chuba Hubbard? We'll go quick. Who would you rather have?
I'm going to go Chuba Hubbard there. Yeah, I think, and I think that's a pretty easy pick for me. I would rather have Chuba Hubbard than Pollard. Now, your auction point earlier about they're so close for me that if you could get Pollard for $2 less in an auction, I think that's a toss-up. But I think that I would feel more confident about Chuba Hubbard as my running back 2, let's say.
So let me give you one other one. Jordan Mason. Oh, actually, let me just tell you, I would take Tony Pollard. Actually, I think I would rather have Tony Pollard.
And Tyjae Spears he got put on the 4-week. I don't even know what they call it anymore. It's not called the IR anymore, but he's starting the year on the PUP, so he's out for the first 4 weeks at least. And Pollard is a great running back, so that one feels like a toss up to me. But I've been sticking with Chuba throughout the preseason, and I'm gonna stay with him here.
Is that a misspeak, or you combine it? Chubard.
I just combine it. It's Chubard. Like those married names that you hear. I just combine his first and last name. He'll be Chubard for me from now on.
I saw that today. What are Travis and Taylor? What they have a combined name.
I don't know.
I saw it today, and I go, oh gosh, what am
Trailer?
I reading? Yeah, get him out of here. Get him. Enough is enough. Now, good for them. It's fine. I always love it. I always love a good engagement story. And I was trying to read what the engagement story was, but I couldn't find it. I couldn't find what the actual story was. So forget about it. I go, what am I doing? Give me some more fantasy content. So one more. Would you rather draft Jordan Mason or Ramondre Stevenson? I think my answer is very
Jordan Mason.
All right.
Jordan Mason.
So
I was going to say earlier, when you said you've got Jordan Mason as kind of your backup plan for Tyrone Tracy, I think that Jordan Mason may already be your running back too. Like, I think he may start the season as a viable running back too. And if something happens to, why can I not remember his name now? Aaron Jones. If something happens to Aaron Jones, Jordan Mason vaults into low, like high end RB2, maybe low end RB1 sort of conversation. So yeah, I'm going Mason there.
Yeah, absolutely. I did get JJ McCarthy. I got him to back up Dak Prescott. So I'm in on Dak and JJ in that league. So we'll see. All right, let's wrap up the show with some late round sleepers and steals. These are guys you like to, last 2 rounds of drafts that you like to snag, especially in deeper leagues, which I play in a lot of 14-team leagues. So I mentioned deep names here. But I mentioned earlier Mason Taylor, the tight end for the Jets. I'm intrigued by him as a backup tight end and sort of the number 2 potential option behind Garrett Wilson. So we'll see about him. And then I really like Kyle Managai for the Bears. I know he's been a little banged up, but I think he's going to be the number 2 guy in Chicago. So I like leaving drafts with him. And then Keaton Mitchell is always a nice roll the dice.
Keaton Mitchell.
I snagged him in the auction league, so that's exciting. What about for you?
I mean, I still think that I would take either Damian Pierce or Woody Marks and have them deep on my bench because, I don't think that Joe Mixon's going to play this year. I know that you're a Nick Chubb believer. I am not a Nick Chubb believer. I think that his best years are behind him. And so I want one of those other Houston running backs just to see what happens there. I can see that makes you mad. Talk me into Nick Chubb.
No, it's just like everybody's doubting Chubb, and I feel like he's just got a little juice left. He just needs a few weeks to start the year.
He has a little juice left in that, like, he'll be good for the first 6 weeks of the season.
Yeah, that's fine.
But I don't know that Mixon comes back this season, and I think the age starts to show on Chubb, and then I think that you potentially have yourself like a solid RB3, maybe low end RB2 type guy with one of those guys. I don't know who it's going to be. So I'm just putting one of them on my bench as a lottery ticket.
Yeah.
Damian Pierce was in his rookie season. Damian Pierce was a great running back, and Woody Marks looks like an athletic player. So I'm okay.
Damian Pierce was okay. He was okay.
This is the face you made at me a couple weeks ago when I tried to tell you about Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt.
Yes.
You're like, you made this disgusted face at me. And
I was wrong. I will admit, I did not see that coming. I was shocked that they just move on from Brian Robinson and that whole all the steps there has been surprising to me.
The train's probably left the station on Ollie Gordon as well, but that's another kind of deep league guy that I'm picking up at the end of a lot of my drafts. It's just a potential solid starting running back. I'm trying to fill out my running back depth at the end of drafts with sort of lottery ticket guys like that.
Yeah. Like I've said over and over, I just can't get in on Miami. So I'm just, I'm just avoiding Miami. But I think Ollie Gordon is absolutely, he fits this bill as far as, he's a guy that you need to roster. But at this point, he's probably going, I don't know, 10th round. He's moved up. He's moved up a bit for sure. One other name, let's see. Oh, I drafted Pat Bryant, wide receiver with Denver. I want Marvin Mims, Cortland Sutton, Pat Bryant, Bo Nix. I want any of those guys. I'm a believer in Denver. I wasn't necessarily last year, but I've come around and I feel pretty good about those guys. So
I think Torrey Horton, who's the rookie wide receiver for the Seattle Seahawks, who appears to be the wide receiver 3 on that team. And we know Cooper Kupp's injury history. So he's another guy who could be a relevant flex-worthy wide receiver if something were to happen to Kupp. So another name to remember and maybe pick up at the very end of a draft.
Yep, that's a good one. All right. Well, cool. Well, there you go. So we got a draft tonight. Looking forward to it. And thanks to everybody for listening today. We got some comments today, so we'll have to respond to some of those. Appreciate you guys jumping in on that as well. But Trip, enjoy the rest of your vacation, and we'll see you in studio next Tuesday as we prepare for week 1 of the fantasy football season.
So excited.
Here we go. So, man, rest up. I got to work on my back. I got to get
That's started. Right. Hey, get that back loose, man. You got to be ready for week 1.
day to day, but I'm a gamer. I'll be ready to go. You better believe it. Thursday night kickoff. Let's go. All right, Trip, we'll talk to you soon. Thanks, buddy. Great stuff out of him. Let me figure. I can't even get rid of you. I don't know how to get rid of you.
I'm not going anywhere until
there you are. Okay. All right. Now you're gone. All right. For Trip, I'm Bryce. I'm a fantasy manager and sports fan who follows Jesus. I believe in the good news that he died on the cross for my sin. He was resurrected. And through faith, I've been saved by his grace. I hope that is true for you as well. And I hope you'll join me as we live life as fantasy managers and sports fans who follow Jesus together. Have a great rest of your day. And we'll talk to you next time right here on the Fantasy Football Fellowship Podcast. And don't forget, let's be adaptable. We'll talk to you soon.